It's the end of December and a time for reflecting. This week, we want to revisit an excellent episode about one of Vegas's biggest news stories of 2022, about the proposed national monument, Avi Kwa Ame. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm here with lead producer Sonia Cho Swanson. We're going to give you all the good news, and then we'll get into the convo with Bertha Gutierrez, a program director at the Conservation Lands Foundation. So, Sonia, we've got one major update since we aired this episode back in August. What's the big news?
Oh, yes. Huge news. So at the end of November, President Biden announced his intention to establish Avi Kwa Ame as a national monument, which is huge news for advocates who've been fighting for this designation for decades. You might remember that national monuments can be established through either legislation or through presidential decree. The whole legislation route wasn't really working out over the past few years.
Yeah. Slow process.
And so they were like, we need a president to step up and make this happen. And it sounds like President Biden is going to do it.
Right. It's a possibility. And if he gets it done, it'll be the largest act of land conservation that he's accomplished in his term. So like 450,000 acres.
Whew. Wow.
Woo.
That's big.
Massive. I mean, Wild West. So I know some folks know of this area, or a part of this area is Christmas Tree Pass, where over the years people started decorating the juniper trees with ornaments and garlands.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I've never seen that, and I'm quite happy because I would be concerned.
Right. I remember hearing about this.
Well, it's actually a sacred site to over 12 tribes. So, it's some people call it Avi Kwa Ame, some people call it Spirit Mountain, but whatever you call it, please don't leave your tinsel there.
Yes. For the animals, too.
Right. Don't do it. Don't do it. The squirrels don't need that for breakfast or lunch.
No.
So, yes.
I love this conversation with Bertha so much. I'm curious, what is something that you loved about your conversation with Bertha?
I loved her enthusiasm and her description of the wildlife and the landscape. So she talks about the mountain ranges and also the sky, that you have that dark sky, that kids who live in Vegas can come out into that area and really look at the stars and see the Milky Way even.
Wow.
So yeah, I was like, oh, you about to make me go outside, girl.
I know. It's not that far. It's like an hour or so away from the city. And to think that that's so close to us in our backyard is pretty awesome. Oh, I have a favorite moment from this episode.
I was like, what was your favorite part?
It has to do with Bertha's cat. His name is Dwayne, and he makes a special appearance at the very end of the episode. So everyone listen through all the way to the end. It's amazing.
Yes, we love our city cats, Las Vegas.
Yes, we
do. It's Friday, December 30th, 2022. I'm Vogue Robinson, and this is CityCast Las Vegas. Good morning, Bertha Gutierrez, and thank you for being on CityCast today.
Thank you, and good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we brought you on. I'd love to know a little bit more about Avi Kwa Ame. Can you tell me what that is?
Avi Kwa Ame is a region in southern Nevada. It surrounds Spirit Mountain, and right now it's a proposed national monument. The area is very sacred to at least 12 Native American tribes, and it's really rich in biodiversity. Some of the biggest Joshua trees in the state of Nevada are there. It is great habitat for tortoise. So because of the great cultural values and the rich biodiversity of the area, it makes it a great candidate for a national monument, which can be protected either by Congress or by the President of the United States through the Antiquities Act.
Oh, okay, cool. For someone who hasn't visited the area, can you describe what it looks like? I know you said it's a great place for tortoises.
So the whole area of the proposed monument, you can travel a little bit of east of Searchlight and be among really, really tall ancient Joshua trees. You travel another hour away from there and you're surrounded by evergreens, and you're at a higher elevation. The air is a little cooler, and you're seeing less Joshua trees and more juniper, more just evergreen. If you travel a little south of there, you are in the middle of creosote bushes, and you may find a tortoise, or you may find jackrabbits. You may see a Gila monster, even though they, you don't want to see a Gila monster, but you may.
But you might watch out.
Yes. So the landscape is so diverse. You can go closer to Spirit Mountain, and you're still going to be surrounded by evergreen, but you're going to be surrounded by these amazing granite mountains that are going to glow pink if you stay there for the sunset.
Man, and the sunsets are my jam out here.
I know, me too. One of my favorite parts is when there's a gorgeous sunset and I go an hour later on social media and we were all
we're
outside with
all
our cameras.
look at it.
Yes.
It sounds so serene, and you said that it is also sacred to 12 tribes.
Yes.
Why is this area sacred to them?
So the 12 tribes that we know of, 10 of them are the human-speaking tribes, which include the Mojave, the Hualapai, among others. And many of these tribes traveled down, some of them into Mexico, but some of them stayed around here, while the process of colonization was happening. The tribe that is closest to the area is the Mojave tribe, and through them, we've learned that the whole area surrounded by Spirit Mountain is their place of their creation story. So it plays a vital part in their life story. And that is true for all 10 human speaking tribes. Then we have the Chemehuevi Paiute and the Southern Paiute in general. Some of the area, which is now known as the New York Mountains, are part of their creation story, their life cycle. And then we have the Hopi, who also see the area as sacred. But then we know that there are so many roads and so many travel routes that cross the Southwest, and specifically surrounding the Avi Kwa Ame area, that we know that there were probably many other tribes that traveled through the area or lived there. We just know of 12 right now.
Right. It's 12 and counting.
Yes.
There's more. How does your work at the Conservation Lands Foundation relate to the Avi Kwa Ame?
So with Conservation Lands Foundation, we support through community groups different campaigns or different stewardship projects. And in this case, we're part of the coalition that is working to get this land protected. So there's a big group actually there's conservation organizations, sports groups, there's other recreational businesses. There are just individuals that have joined because we all see the value in this area, and everybody has a different interest. Our interest is to really protect this area in a permanent basis so that it can really help us survive as humans. We need a balanced environment. We need to learn how to live with nature in order to survive. Protecting Avi Kwa Ame would help with our climate goals, saving habitat for biodiversity to survive and to move as the climate changes. It would help preserve the cultural values. There are indigenous tribes that their culture is tied to the place. They still go and visit different areas to be able to pass down their culture. And so the landscape has to be there, has to be protected so that their culture can continue.
So it sounds like, okay, we've got different communities, but is there a major goal of the coalition?
The main goal is to protect the area as national monument. So, and as I mentioned before, a national monument can be protected either through an act of Congress. And right now, Representative Dina Titus has a bill in Congress, the Avi Kwa Ame National Monument Protection Act of 2022. She introduced it in January. But it has to go through the whole Congress, right? There has to be a matching bill in the Senate. Then it has to go through the whole process, a hearing, a vote, both in the House and the Senate. And sometimes that's complicated. These days it's actually like kind of complicated to get anything through.
Yeah.
So because a national monument can be designated through a proclamation by the President of the United States, protecting an object, a cultural, historical object, then the President of the United States can do that. It could either be through Congress or through the President. And that's what we're hoping for. Whatever happens first, right? Whatever can happen the easiest. We're here to support that. But we're here to really um, educate the community about the importance of the area. It's also important for recreation. The Avi Kwa Ame area, because there's a couple of mountain ranges that separate that area from Las Vegas, you can see the stars. And how many kids that live in Las Vegas, live in these urban areas, haven't seen the Milky Way? You can see it from Avi Kwa Ame, right? You can go for a hike, you can go for a picnic, you can spend some time in nature, which is so important to us really connecting as humans and like preserving our mental health.
Yeah.
So part of that is just like really getting the community out there.
What do you think are the biggest concerns that locals have?
So part of that area is protected as tortoise habitat. But that only happens in the lower elevations. So the higher elevation areas in Avi Kwa Ame are not protected right now. They are managed as multiple use by the Bureau of Land Management. What does that mean? That means that a mine can come and have a claim on it. There could be an industrial level uh, energy project that can like claim that area. So there has been some of that those projects come up in the past, and it's been up to the tribes and conservation groups and the neighbors that live around there, Searchlight, that have been fighting different projects. So the answer to that, the answer to playing whack-a-mole from project to project to protect the area, is to have a permanent protection like a national monument designation. So that's I mean, if the area was good, if everybody was leaving it alone, we wouldn't be in this fight. It would be all golden. But we do have there's concern about some open areas that can be snatched up for something other than protecting the cultural values or protecting the habitat that exists in there. Usually you have somebody that says, no, this is not a good idea. But the Avi Kwa Ame national monument proposal is actually has the support of all of the townships that are around it. So we have the support of Searchlight, Boulder City, Henderson, and then Laughlin. Laughlin has such a rich experience in tourism and water tourism, right? And they realize that protecting this area can bring that land tourism that they're lacking. People hiking, people backpacking. And where do they go for supplies? They go to the nearest grocery store.
Yeah.
Or if they don't like camping, they go to the nearest hotel, right? So there are so many benefits, and the surrounding towns, they realize that, and they're like, yes, let's do this. National monuments are good for the economy. They're good for individuals and their mental health. They're good for the animals that live there, and they're good for preserving culture and history.
This is not a new battle. Like, this is long time in the game. So when did this movement begin, this desire to ask for this land to be protected?
The Mojave tribe has actually been at it for decades, and they have been little by little advancing protections. First, it was having Spirit Mountain itself designated as traditional cultural property. Then it was having it designated as wilderness. Then it was, it's like little by little they've been able to achieve. There's some designations in the California side that are really part of that larger landscape that have been able to get protected. So right now, Avi Kwa Ame, the Nevada portion of it, is like really the last piece of the puzzle. to get that whole landscape, that whole really cultural landscape protected.
Word. And does tribal sovereignty play a role in the negotiations at all?
Absolutely. In fact, right now, in order to really get anywhere, you do have to have tribal support for whatever proposal that exists. And right now, it's really important. Right, this administration has made it a priority, and we see it because Secretary Haaland is the first Native American to hold the Department of Interior secretary positions. And that's how it should be, right? Like, hopefully that stays forever and ever, because that's really how it should be. They should be part of the conversation. Tribes should be part of the conversation when it comes to not only conservation, but also industrial development. Like, it's like, where is it okay to do this?
And are we having people who are stewards of the land really present in the room to speak? Are desert lands harder to protect? Because I know some people are like, well, it's just dirt.
Yes. I, that's why we do community-led conservation, because the people that think, it's just desert, there's nothing out there, let's go put some nuclear waste. It's people that don't live here, right? It's people that don't know the desert, that haven't been to the desert and haven't seen the life that is in there. I don't think that you can live here and be like, as long as you have experience, as long as you have been out there. And that's one of the very important parts of any kind of campaign, bringing the community out there, because you can talk all day long about how beautiful Avi Kwa Ame is, but if you get people to go out there for an hour, that's an experience, right? That's something that you can't really put into words or pictures, even though we try. We try to bring in the landscape to the community, but if we can at all get people out there, get kids out there, then that's where you really create real advocates.
I love that. So I'm wondering, who owns that land technically, and why aren't they willing to conserve it, especially when it's clear that there are multiple communities who've come together to say, this land is sacred, this is important, and it's good for our balanced wholeness?
So right now that land is owned by the federal government and is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. So there are several land managing agencies under the federal government. You have the National Park, the National Park Service, and they manage the national parks. You have the U.S. Forest Service. They manage forests. You have the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They manage a lot of the national refuges, like the Desert National Refuge that we have just north of Las Vegas. And then you have the Bureau of Land Management, which is a very interesting agency. It's the youngest one of all. And they manage land for multiple use. And that's the interesting part. Multiple use means oil and gas, energy, clean energy, mining, grazing, and conservation. And that's the thing, right? The agency, Bureau of Land Management, can go and say, we're going to manage this area for this or for this or for this. At the moment, they have made a designation that says we're going to manage this land as tortoise habitat. The actual name is an area of critical environmental concern, and it's specific for tortoise management, right? For tortoise habitat management. But as I said, that only includes what's good tortoise habitat, which is the lower elevation, really flat. Tortoise can go rock climbing. they don't mess with that. They don't mess with that. Just like me. So that's the key issue, right? And they do listen to the community. The big energy projects that have come up in the past, they have to go through an application process. And the last one that was there took 10 years, and they ended up rejecting it. And that's because they listened to the neighbors, they listened to conservation advocates. There were some lawsuits, but it takes such a long time. So these type of proposals, like a monument movement, you're asking the agency to protect it, but that is through their processes. So this is like going to your elected officials and saying, this is what we want. We really love this area and we want to conserve it as it is. And it's important because of all of these different reasons. And that's where you can make that change.
So what's next for the Avi Kwa Ame National Monument movement?
We really are just waiting on the designations. We're working on right now is taking people out there, gathering signatures in support. You can go to Honor Avi Kwa Ame or honorspiritmountain.org and sign the petition there. You can go visit the area and post about it on your social media and tell your friends. So right now, it's just gathering support at a national level, asking the president, asking our senators in Nevada to really rally up and get behind the movement and really support the permanent designation, the permanent protection that the monument designation brings. Secretary Haaland hasn't visited yet, so hopefully that would happen. That would be a fangirl moment for me.
Hey.
I would love to see her.
Right. Come on down.
Yes.
Come on down. Bertha Gutierrez, thank you so much for being on CityCast today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for being interested in this National Monument proposal.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. We know you're enjoying the show, so here are 4 things you can do to show us some love. Tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. Talk soon.